Well, hey there. This is Linda Baumgarten from Daring to Prosper, and welcome to the Beyond the Glass Ceiling Summit. And I'm so excited to interview our guest today because in the summit, we're going to be bringing you 21 different strategies for improving your business, having more confidence, maybe even starting a business or exploding it all across the world. Who knows? But we're going to do whatever we need to do with all of our experts. And today I'm so excited because in putting the summit together, I got to reach out, reconnect with an old friend, old mentor of mine, Karen Kaufman, who, when I was in my early 20s, I used to wear overalls and flannel shirts and didn't know how to use makeup. And somehow she was able to transform me into a fashionable young lady, which that was not easy because I went kicking and screaming, if I remember correctly. Um, but so you know who she is officially. She's Karen Kaufman, MSOD, president and co-founding principal of the Council of the Kaufman Partnership. Since 1985, she has transformed organizational talent through executive coaching and leadership development. As creator of the Kaufman Impression Management System, she accelerates executive presence and leadership capacity in professionals and entrepreneurs seeking greater impact. She's been featured in over 100 publications, including the Wall Street Journal and Fortune magazine. And I am so excited for you, Karen, because you've now published your own book, which I love, Magic, Making a Good Impression, Count on and Off the Golf Course. I really love that. So, Karen, thank you so much for being on this call, and let's just dive right into it. I'm definitely in a due for a redo because since you and I met, I still remember you said, "Oh, you have such a cute little figure." Yes, I probably did in the 20s. I've put on a few pounds. And the other challenge is that everything is being done on Zoom. So where I used to get up on stages in nice little suits and all that, it's much more casual. People would think I was weird if I dressed like that. So I think we're in time for a redo for sure. So yeah, especially since there. So let's just start off with what do you mean by personal branding and how can I influence that? And especially as an entrepreneur, what does that mean?
Yes. So for each person, we want to think about how do we want to present ourselves? What's important to us? What's unique about us? How can I express that? Because as an entrepreneur, people are going to buy you
Mm,
before they buy your product and your service. So if you think about when you were about 12 years old, what inspired you? What inspired me was when the real estate agent came to our house and she had her portfolio and she was in a professional suit. I hadn't seen a professional woman up until that point.
mm,
So I made the decision that I wanted to be a professional woman.
mm.
So that has influenced my brand, both in terms of how I present myself, in terms of being a professional and doing what I say I'm going to do. So it's really the why behind what's the legacy that
Okay.
you want to leave.
Mm.
So, again, what is unique about you? How do you want to express it? And how is it consistent with your why and your legacy?
And it definitely has to be authentic, right? Because again, most as an entrepreneur myself, yes, I have a brand, but mostly people see me. So I have to be consistent through all my actions and my words and my dress and everything else to communicate something, right?
It's all about authenticity. It's getting to that expression. So, for example, years ago, when I first started and the whole Dress for Success movement came, it was about having people fit into an organizational structure.
Yes.
Things are much different today. There's much more flexibility. So the happiest people are the people that are doing what they want to do and they feel that they can bring their whole self to life and to the particular situation. Now, that doesn't mean being authentic does not mean that you say what's ever on your mind and you don't care. That is not authenticity.
That's right. I think we see too much of that going on today with social media. People put out stuff they would never say to their friends. So, and I guess that's part of personal branding. And we hadn't discussed this before, but do you think about when you post things in a like on LinkedIn or on a social media that maybe I shouldn't post things about this subject because it's not consistent with my business? Do you think about that and coach people about that?
Absolutely. You don't want to put anything in writing that you wouldn't want on a billboard.
Oh, that's really good.
Okay. And
Yes.
then there's a permanent record of everything. So we need to be intentional about what we put out in the universe. It all represents us. And let me just make a distinction between brand and reputation.
Okay, good.
Reputation is what people say about us when we're not in the room.
Ah, yes, yes.
We have less control over that. We have less control over what people think about us. But what we do have control over is what we put out. And that is a part of our brand. And it also includes your values. So all of this is part of who we are. Now, when I first heard the word branding, I thought about a cow with a brand on it, so
Yes.
I didn't like that word at first, but yet um, it really got traction. So I like to think about it in terms of how you want to reimagine yourself.
Okay.
And that's why we called this session Reimagining You, because as you said, you're not the 20-year-old that was starting out. I'm not the 20-year-old, but we can look and feel great at any age and any stage.
You and I were talking about that. Like, we feel like the 70 is now the new 50, right? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, it's what keeps us young. And I know you know this is learning and growing.
Mhm.
We don't want our brain cells to get stale. And our best investment is in you and I. So the best investment you can make is in yourself. So I have had many coaches that I've paid over the years because high performers need coaches. And the Wall Street Journal, they did a lot of interviews with me about executive coaching and how it was growing. And they only took one quote from everything I said. And what quote they took was that people are blind to their biggest derailers.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So we are not objective about ourselves. We can't see ourselves the way other people see us, which is why at K Partners, we've developed proprietary tools to help people see themselves in a more accurate and current way so that we can leverage our assets and then tweak and refine our needs.
Yeah, so two things about this. So right now, where we are today, lots of things are changing. And you've been through this, I've been through this where I got laid off multiple times. I went from I went from being a social worker to being a technical writer to and that was funny because I was afraid I was going to break the computer, didn't know anything about computers, to being in real estate. And then that whole debacle happened. And then we had something called the pandemic a couple years ago. So as an entrepreneur, I strengthened my muscle to pivot, to see an opportunity, to see a problem, to see an opportunity to pivot, to solve that problem so that I can continue doing my mission, which is to turn ordinary people into extraordinary people. And so I think having a third party assessment at each stage of our life is so important. And that's actually a gift that you're giving to the people that are listening on this call. So do you want to talk a little bit about that assessment before we get into
Sure,
the topic?
sure. So, what I will be offering to folks is part of our broader Kaufman impression management system. This specifically identifies 24 factors of leadership. And why we created it is companies used to call us and say, we have this talented person, but. So my late partner used to say, we work with the butts. And they used to say things
Say that.
like, we have this talented person, but they need more polish. We have this talented person, but they need more fire in their belly. So, how do you take that and do something with it? So that's why we created a proprietary tool to help people identify what are those factors that are most correlated with making a positive impression, which then helps to build relationships, which enhances our performance and our leadership. So we call, and what I'll be offering to each of you is our Kaufman Factors of Leadership, which is a self assessment tool so that you can go through the 24 areas and rate yourself. And it's in a particular situation now. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're in corporate America, the context is where you are in your role right now.
Okay.
And then, if people want to take it a step further, I'll help you leverage your assets and refine the impression needs so that you can have the impact and you can have the influence that is so important today. Because, as you were saying, we have to break through people's filters. You and I have an attention span of maybe about 7 seconds. Research shows that a goldfish has an attention span of 11 seconds. So, so we have to keep people's attention.
I should have a fishbowl going on. Yes, yes. And the self-assessment, when you're in a corporate, when I was in corporate, I could get feedback immediately from the people I'm working with. Nowadays, even if I have a corporate job, I may be remote and it's harder to get that assessment. And then certainly as an entrepreneur, when I'm meeting with realtors about buying a property through them, I've really got to keep checking myself. How am I landing with that person? Am I being a leader? Am I exuding that I'm capable of doing this transaction? All of those kinds of things are really, really important. And which brings us to the next idea of leadership. Even as an entrepreneur, maybe especially as an entrepreneur, why is leadership so important and how can we get better at it?
All right. So, first of all, we cannot lead others until we lead ourselves. And as an entrepreneur, we have to be self-generating.
Yes.
What? Because there's no clock to punch. So we need to have the discipline and the rigor to work on our priorities, to get out of bed in the morning. And what will drive us is what is our why. So for me, my commitment is to have people be the best that they can be. Nothing gives me more pleasure than having successful people be more successful and achieve their goals because that has us be happy. And I think at the bottom line is we want to be happy doing what we love with people that we want to love and people that love us. So by developing the factors of leadership, that creates the kind of relationships and the kind of community that as an entrepreneur we need. 90% of my clients have come from referrals. I'm now
Yep.
seeing the children of the people that I worked with,
Really? Oh
and
my
it's
gosh.
mind blowing.
Yes.
But if I didn't have those strong relationships and have fulfilled my promise with those clients, they would not be recommending others. So our trustworthiness as a professional is so important.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Wow, that's so important. That's a lot to unpack. Yes, I think my business also has grown 90% through entrepreneurs. The experts that I get to interview on this summit all came from referrals from other folks who are trusting me to deliver this content to you, the listener. And so important. So, and you keep mentioning mentorship, which I know you talk about in your book. Why is mentorship so? I have a couple questions about mentorship because I always have mentors and I've always invested in myself. But how do you, let me see. Let's start off as an entrepreneur, how do I mentor other people? Like, how would that work for, is that a goal that I should have as I bring people along in my business? That's one question. And then the second question I have is, how do I select a mentor for myself? And can I have multiple mentors at a time, or should I be a serial mentoree, whatever that word is?
Yeah, I think a lot about mentoring, Linda. People have to want to mentor someone else. And
Mm,
there has to be something in it for the mentor as well as the mentee.
mm-hmm.
And um, we can't force people to be mentors. And in organizations, mentors were being assigned to mentees. That does not work. There has to be a feeling that I want to help this particular person.
Yes.
And as a mentee, what can you give back to your mentor? I've always worked to surround myself with people that know as much or know more than me so that I could learn from them. Especially when I was young and took on leadership roles, I made sure that I surrounded myself with people that knew more than me. And when
Mhm.
you talk about mentorship, I'm also going to say that we sometimes have to weed our garden of relationships that are no longer serving us.
Oh, good point. Yep.
So that is okay as well. Um, we are a natural mentor, and I think this is not appreciated. We people watch us all the time. So we are always mentoring others by our words, by our behavior, by how we present ourselves, by how we treat other people. And civility and manners, which is one of our factors, needs we need to put that back in.
Mm,
We are not treating others in the way that we want to be treated. And that is a part of our brand. Whether it's the way I think about it is, how can I make someone else's day better today?
exactly. Yep. Exactly. Just put that on the bulletin board. How can I make your day better? Standing in line at the grocery store, going through the airports, thanking the cashier, thanking the person cleaning the restroom, just spreading that, making somebody else's day better is just such a simple thing that we can add into our daily routine that will carry us forward. You know, I've had some very powerful mentors. I've hung out with some very famous people. And the most disappointing thing that happens is when that famous person does not live up to their brand. When you get too close to them and then all of a sudden they're not who they say they are.
Yeah.
And that really sticks with me. It's really important what you just said. Not everybody wants to be a mentor, which is why it's often useful to invest in a mentor outside of your business or outside of your circle. It also provides a third perspective, but they have the time to coach you. I coach a lot of people in real estate, and people say, well, I can learn it on YouTube. But you can't. You can get some ideas. But if you have a mentor relationship, then you get to learn from that person and you have their undivided attention and their commitment to be successful. So, do you have an example of somebody maybe that you've mentored or provided that kind of coaching to, and what difference it made for them?
Well, we have to distinguish between a volunteer mentor and a paid professional.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So, I hired a coach when we went from personal fashion consulting to image consulting to executive coaching. So we hired him to supervise our cases to make sure that we were taking care of people in the way that we did. And I would set up appointments, and I had to know what it was like to pay for these sessions. And yet, if a client wanted to see me at that time, I would call Bob up and say, Bob, I need to change my appointment because a client wants me at that time. And he said, Karen, your development comes before your client's development. And I would say, but Bob, these are clients. It's very important. Karen, your development comes before your clients. And it took me months and months and months to get that. But we can't give what we don't have. So he was a mentor to me. He was a paid professional. And, what we can get for free, we get for free. But
Yes.
it's one thing when we are paying a professional, they are there for us 100%. And we have to know what it's like to invest our own money in our development. So now I put my needs before my clients' needs. And that's not selfish, it's selfless. So,
I think that's a really hard concept, I think, especially for women. And I'm thinking about, the airline where they say, the oxygen mask drop and you have to put it on yourself first before you put it on your
yeah.
child, right? But it's not really being selfish, right? It's,
No, you can't take care, and we can't take care of other people's needs unless we take care of our own.
yes.
So make sure you get your exercise in. You can't look and feel great at any age and any stage if you are not exercising and you're not eating properly and you're not staying current with how you present yourself. So all of these things are possible when we begin to reimagine the kind of life that we want to live to create the longevity that most of us want.
Yes. So, which, again, I'm always, as an entrepreneur, my job really, and everybody has different roles in their company, but primarily, every entrepreneur I've met, our job is to get new clientele and to raise money, right?
Yes.
Those two
Yes.
things. Everything else you can hire, but you've got to find the clients and you've got to be able to hire them. So what I'm hearing you saying by constantly developing myself, learning about myself will make me more available and more successful in gaining new clients and having more confidence that what I have to offer is what somebody is worth hiring me for, right?
Yes. And as an entrepreneur, you have to be doing three things simultaneously. You have to be fulfilling your clients' needs, you have to be marketing, and you have to be selling. And the pitfall that I see entrepreneurs make is when they get a project, they're doing that 100%, dropping out the marketing, dropping out the sales.
Yes.
And then they end up with, oh, the engagement's over and now I have to start all over again. So think about it as maybe um, one third, and one third,
Yeah.
or maybe it's 50% fulfilling. I think it shifts. And the other thing about being an entrepreneur, you have to be able to go with the ups and downs. There is not the consistency of cash flow. So make
Yeah.
sure you get a bank, a credit line when you don't need it. That was some of the best advice I was giving. Think progress, not perfection. There
Mm.
is no perfection, but we can make progress each and every day?
You know what? And which brings us to the, boy, that's so much there we could unpack. Or- But that brings us to the game of golf, because
Okay.
you've been using it as a metaphor for life, and that is anybody who's played golf knows that there is no perfection, right? So,
Oh,
and your book is like full of all these insights, but which is just really important. But tell me how you made that transference in your head of playing golf to business. Like how did
okay.
that happen?
So I never picked up a golf club until age 40.
Oh, really?
And yeah. And why I got into the game is because as an executive coach, I heard women say repeatedly, the men are on the golf course and I'm stuck in the office. I heard it enough times that I said I have to get in the game of golf, at least be able to talk golf. What I didn't realize was that I would love it and
Oh,
be hooked.
yes.
So when I wanted to write a book, which was a goal of mine for the last 30 years, I thought, what would be a short, punchy, provocative book that would impart magical nuggets with my clients through the lens and the metaphor of 18 holes of golf.
Yes.
So, and I had a picture, the cover of the book Magic, done on the golf course where I play.
Nice.
So, magic, making a good impression count on and off the golf course. I thought, you know what? That's punchy, it's provocative. And at the end of every chapter, and the chapters are short because I like to pick up a book, spend 5 minutes, and get something that will make my day better. So, in this way, um, someone could pick it up for 5 minutes, and there's three magical nuggets at the end that, if you think about it, can help make your day better. And may I just share one with you that's very important as an entrepreneur, and that is that there will always be naysayers. Use their comments to fuel your drive and your commitment. So I was told when I was leaving my corporate job that I wasn't going to be successful because we dressed people in the stores, he told me. And my
Yeah.
goal, my concept was to be a personal fashion consultant for executive men and women. And when he said that to me, it was, I will show you. So I used his comment to fuel my drive and commitment.
But yeah, boy, that's a lot. I'm just thinking, so first of all, I used your book that way. Because I every day I would start and I'd read a chapter and then I go to the nuggets and I said, okay, this is going to shape my day today. So you it's really brilliant. I urge you to get the book and read it, and then maybe we should make some posters, some Kaufmanisms or something, magicisms or something for posters for my office. Anyway, um, the last question I have for you is what, you've been an entrepreneur, you were an entrepreneur before we even talked about being entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
And what do you say, what can we do to encourage people to take on being an entrepreneur? And you did point out one thing just now, which is sometimes income goes up and down. And
Yeah.
one of my sisters can't stand that idea. Like she's corporate all the way. And unfortunately, I've seen that a lot of people went into corporate thinking they would have a job for life. My dad was for DuPont, he retired from DuPont. It's just not that way anymore,
Mhm.
unfortunately. And so, what can you say to encourage people to be an entrepreneur, to have courage to do it? And what would might be some great advice to get started, if or that to get started in being an entrepreneur? And then I have a follow-up for people that are already entrepreneurs.
Okay. So I will say first to each of you, No one cares more about your career than you. And there are no guarantees. So if you have an idea, begin to develop it. Start small. Maybe you keep your corporate job at the same time, but begin something. What is it that you are passionate about? And then this series will help you overall, this summit, um, in creating in bringing forth your contribution to others. Um, I think you have to view yourself as an entrepreneur first. And because mindset matters and optimism matters. And that's one of the factors on our profile. And so is the confidence. And confidence ebbs and flows. It's not like we have it or we don't. There's different domains of action of confidence. Um, so those are just a couple things.
Yes, yes. And then for those of us who have been in business for a while and we're looking at this year to the next 5 years, what do you think is critical for us to take on right now?
Well, I think we have to say what's important to me. What do I want to invest my life doing?
Mm,
Our time is our life. And for me personally, I am not doing anything that I really don't want to do career wise. If I'm learning and growing, there's a passion, there's an excitement around it. So, what can we do that will contribute to making the world a better place?
mhm,
What is unique to you that you can contribute to the world, even if it supplements your income? And as women, we need to be financially independent. And I know this is a big message for you, but we can't depend on other people. So the other thing I would say is save at least 10% of what you make and invest it.
mm.
Don't spend all of your money. Um, we want to spend less than we make. I learned that the hard way.
Yes,
No, I spent what I made and more, but
yes,
but not a good idea.
yes. Well, Karen, thank you so much. This has been just really fabulous and educational for sure. The whole concept of reimagining you, you're the best person I know to do that. So I encourage you, the listener, to take that assessment, fill it out, hear what Karen has to offer for you, and buy her book. Because and then if you know people on your team that need reimagining, your colleagues that need reimagining, we're all in this together. Let's have them listen to this interview and reach out. So
Yeah, Linda, I was going to offer something
sure,
to the listeners, if that's okay.
sure.
Because as we were saying, it is very hard to see ourselves objectively.
Mhm.
So I wanted to offer a 1 hour reimagining you power hour. And normally for this session, it would be $500. But for those people that are part of the summit, I'm planning to offer it for $395.
Mm.
And that would be only through June. Only
Oh, okay.
through June. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can tell you it's that's very that's very valuable for sure. Not just what you look like physically, but how you carry how I carry myself,
Yeah.
the type of people I talk to, how I shake hands with somebody, how I look somebody in the eye. You, the listener, I'm not sure where you're at in your development, but it's wherever you are now, let's take it to the next level and let's break through that next level. And a year from now, we should have a reunion of all the summit participants and see what happened. So But that's a really awesome offer. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for participating. Look forward to meeting up with you and hiring you myself for
Yes.
my new outlook. Anyway, so Karen, thank you so much. Any final words or we're good?
Yeah, just go for it.
Ah,
Just break through who you've considered yourself to be so that you could be all of you. And thank you so much for listening.
yes,
Thank you, Linda.
you're welcome.
All right. Bye now.